drafted in 1968. I refused to go to Vietnam in 1970. I was part of the Fort Lewis 6, which was the largest mass refusal of GIs to go to Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Okay, so why did I refuse to go to Vietnam? When I got the draft notice, Vietnam was what you thought about when you thought about the military. I did not want to go. I didn't want to go because they were shooting people over there and people were getting shot. I found that very inconvenient. But that's not enough. That wasn't enough for me to make my decision. There was another factor involved in it. I had a friend who had volunteered for the military when he was 17. He had gone over. He had come back around the time that I got my draft notice. And I went to see him, and he could not get me, our conversation could not get beyond the fact that they had confiscated his belt with his knickknacks he had collected in Vietnam. They took it from him at the airport in Vietnam and wouldn't let him wear it back stateside. What was on this belt? Ears of the people he had killed. And I could not get the conversation beyond that. And it hit me. Not only do I not want to get killed, I don't want to end up like my friend. Because at that point he was a mindless killer. You know. But still, that wasn't enough for me to make my decision. Because if Vietnam was the right thing to do, then I could not just get myself personally around it if it was the correct thing to do. So I had to find out whether it was the correct thing to do. I talked to all of the GIs I could find who had been to Vietnam to find out from them what was it like over there, what was going on, what was the deal. And I got two sets of answers. One set was, oh man, you'll love it. You can get all the weeds you want, you can get a woman anytime you want, all this kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, okay, but y'all ain't mentioning the war. There's more going on than you're telling me about. Another set of answers I got was that this is a war where everybody that you see might be your enemy. Men, women, even children. And that's what you were stepping into. And some of the guys who told me this actually wanted to go back to Vietnam. Other guys who told me this were like, that was the worst mistake I ever made. But they agreed that that was what the war was like. And then I had to, well, why is it that men, women, and children are fighting against the U.S. Army? The answer to that question I found from the anti-war movement. And I found that the reason everybody over in Vietnam was fighting against the U.S. was that the U.S. was a continuer of imperialist and colonial domination in Vietnam. And the Vietnamese people were making revolution to kick the U.S. out just like they had kicked the French out before that. And I was being presented with the opportunity to join in that suppression of the Vietnamese people's revolution. And I said, okay, that's what they want me to go across the water 10,000 miles with a gun to do. Over here, kids younger than me were having dogs sick on them. Marches in the South, having water hoses turned on them, fighting for basic rights for black people. And I put that together and said, what kind of fool would I be if I went off and fought for the United States thinking I was fighting to bring freedom somewhere else when there wasn't no damn freedom here? That came together for me, and that's why I was a part of the refusal, the mass refusal to go to Vietnam. I did 2 years in Fort Leavenworth Military Penitentiary for that crime. While I was in Leavenworth, some things further came together for me. It hit me, I looked into this and it hit me that this was not a bad policy decision by Nixon, LBJ, Kennedy, and all of them. Although it was a policy decision that they made, but what drove them to do that was this system, the search for profits, for global domination of this system. And that the same thing was what was responsible for the way that they held black people down, so that they could rob them even more than they robbed most white people in this country. And that system, that capitalist system, was the problem. And that the war that I had to fight was not only not over in Vietnam, but here, but it had to be a revolutionary war. I became a revolutionary in a communist period, came out of jail on that tip, and that's where I've been ever since. Now, folks might say, okay, that's an interesting story, but what the hell does that have to do with today? Okay, well today, different wars. Not Vietnam, it's Iraq, it's Afghanistan, there are threats to spread it to Pakistan, talk about spreading it to Iran. Are these wars today of the same character as the Vietnam War or different character? And see, we got to talk about that. This is the latest issue of Revolution newspaper. It's got a centerfold spread on Afghanistan, a war for empire, not a good war gone bad. That's what this war is about, just like Vietnam was a war for empire. You've probably, well, if you've been looking into it, you would have heard that several times this year, there have been wedding parties in Afghanistan that the U.S. military bombed, killing dozens of people. Initially, the U.S. said, oh, no, those were terrorists we killed. That woman with the veil and all of that, you know, and the trail and all that was a terrorist. We could tell by how she was dressed. That's what the fuck they might as well have been saying, because they bombed an actual wedding party. Because for them, a whole bunch of people getting together in Afghanistan must be the enemy. So they got to rain down death and destruction on them. That's what this war is about, and Afghanistan is the same. The raids they've been carrying out in Pakistan are already spreading that there, and there's talk of doing more of that. And if they attack Iran, it will come down to the same thing. Wars for empire. Wars that it is not in the interest of the people of the world that they're going down. It's definitely not in the interest of the people who are getting bombed and shot at and all like that. But neither is it in the interest of people in this country. It is still a thing of an imperialist system fighting to spread and tighten its global domination. People should not be a part of that. That's why I'm with this tour, this We Are Not Your Soldiers tour. I want to use the benefit of my experience to talk to the generation that's being asked to be a part of this war and say,